In January of 2009, Steve Jobs was on a brief medical leave from Apple following his liver transplant. In his absence, Tim Cook outlined his vision for Apple in what later became known as the Cook Doctrine. But who was Tim Cook, and why was he outlining a vision for Apple while Jobs was still the CEO? Tim Cook joined Apple in the spring of 1998. The company was in the middle of a restructuring process. Their operations were a mess, and they needed someone who had the know-how to make it work. Although the company had outsourced their manufacturing, they still had a large amount of inventory. This type of organization, where most of the work of the organization is accomplished through external contractual arrangements with a network of suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors, is known as a networked organization. In the Cook Doctrine, however, Cook reflects a need for Apple to keep more of their important work in-house. This contrasts with Google, which developed the Android software and allows it to be used on a variety of different devices owned by other companies. Under Cook's demanding leadership style, Apple's factories began to run so lean that they had almost zero inventory. During Jobs' medical leave, following his liver transplant, Cook took over the day-to-day operations of Apple. It was a taste of what was to come. A few months before he passed away in October of 2011, Steve Jobs appointed Tim Cook CEO of Apple. Although the two men worked closely together for years, Cook has a distinct leadership style from Jobs that was reflected in the changes that he made to how the company is run. Under Jobs, many called the organizational structure a spoke and wheel structure. While this design isn't recognized as one of the primary types of organizational structure, it reflects the considerable amount of authority Jobs had within the company. Authority answers the question, who makes the decisions? More specifically, it refers to the idea of who in an organization has the right to make the final decisions, allocate resources, and direct the work of employees. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle have organizational charts that represent mechanistic structures, which have a high degree of complexity, formalization, and centralization. Apple and Facebook, at least in the cartoon, have more organic structures, which are flexible and adaptable, having fewer levels of management, decentralized decision-making, and less direct supervision. The reality of Apple under both Steve Jobs and Tim Cook is more complex. There was a great degree of freedom and a certain organic nature to the company under Jobs, stemming from its startup-in-a-garage origins. Over time, more work specialization had occurred. Work specialization refers to how tasks in the organization are broken down into different jobs. Extreme specialization occurs in factories where a worker is responsible for placing one part on a product, and only that part. For the most part, complex jobs at Apple contain many different tasks, but they may be grouped into specific departments. Departmentalization is how jobs are grouped together. There are different types of departmentalization, including by product, where everyone working on a particular product is in the same department, or by geography, when everyone for a particular location is in the same department. Apple is departmentalized by function. Another aspect of how jobs are organized lies in the formalization. Organizations can have clearly defined job descriptions, or they may be more flexible in what tasks employees can take on. Employee behavior can be heavily guided by rules and procedures, or they may have more flexibility and autonomy. Tim Cook allowed for greater autonomy and freedom, which meant the company became less formalized. What the spoke and wheel structure of Apple under Steve Jobs represents is a great deal of centralization. Centralization and decentralization refer to the amount of autonomy people within an organization have to make decisions. With Jobs at the helm, many major decisions went through him. This centralization reflects a desire to tightly control the brand and the organization. Under Cook, Apple experienced more decentralization. Cook gave teams more freedom over strategy and product development. He still gave a critical eye to decisions being made at the company, but while Jobs was known for hogging the limelight, Cook shares the spotlight with those under him. And there were quite a few people under Cook. As of July 2015, Cook had 17 direct reports. This span of control, the number of employees a manager oversees, determines how many layers of management an organization has. If a manager has a small span of control, then the teams are smaller and may work together better. This means an organization will be taller, with many management layers. Although this allows for managers to have closer contact with their employees, it can also be expensive as the organization will need to hire and pay for more managers. Larger spans of control are less expensive, requiring fewer managers. This creates flatter organizations. Although it may be harder for managers to have meetings with so many direct reports, there are other benefits. Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, noted that a flatter structure allowed employees to flex their muscles and focus on more important issues. This larger span of control also reflects Cook's decentralized approach. In every change that Cook made to the organization, he brought a different type of organizational culture to Apple. Authority was decentralized, giving more control to the people beneath him to make decisions and take on strategy. The organization no longer revolved around one person, Steve Jobs. Major leadership transition is never easy, and in corporate America, a new leader can bring many changes to the organization, even, as we've seen with Cook, to the structure of the organization itself. The structure reflects the decisions of the leader and affects the organization's culture, strategy, and ultimately their financial success.